Hi there, and welcome back to Stories Across South America. I'm Clara, and I am so glad you are here. Today's episode is a special one, not just because it's the last story of our first season of Stories Across South America, but because it's a great reminder of what truly memorable travel can look and feel like in South America. In this episode, Maria sits down with Betsy, Elizabeth Elman, who recently took a wonderful trip with her family through Chile, Argentina, and Uruguay, planned with us at Across South America. Betsy shares the highlights of her winter journey. Yes, winter in South America, and why this is such a perfect time to visit if you are looking to escape the summer heat back home in the Northern Hemisphere. From tasting wine in Mendoza and staying at a beautiful Cavas Wine Lodge, to watching glaciers in the Patagonia, without the crowds, her story is full of special moments. She also talks about a lovely meal with locals in Chile, how easy it was to eat gluten-free during her trip, and how helpful our team was every step on the way. It's a fun, honest, and inspiring conversation that might just spark ideas for your next adventure. So get comfortable and enjoy Betsy's South American story. And with that, we wrap up our first season of Stories Across South America. Thank you so much for being with us. We will be back in 2026 with more amazing travel stories to share. Now, let's dive into Betsy's story.
So how was your time in South America and reconnecting with your daughter, with Claire?
The whole trip was it was great. We loved meeting up with Clara in Santiago. It was nice she could join us on all of our activities. And we hadn't seen her for like 3 weeks. So, because she lived with us over the summer, we had a great time. So yeah, fantastic trip of a lifetime type of situation. So very good.
That's good to hear. But it's not the same when you have being at home is one thing, but traveling in family with your daughter is a different scenario, right?
It is, but she nicely likes to figure out restaurants and like, oh, we have some free time, let's go do this.
She has the time to do that.
And she did, because she had a whole month to travel, right? So, she was all over South America. So she really took advantage of that month and saw a lot of stuff.
What are your thoughts about South America? Because I know this was the first time you were traveling around. How did you feel about the places you visited, the expectations you had with all these destinations?
It's a beautiful country. We loved seeing different parts of the country. The people were so nice and friendly. We really never had a problem. If we had a problem communicating, we all tried to work it out. But I just think on the whole that it's a friendly culture, and, everyone seemed willing to help and that type of thing. We saw stuff that we would never see in the United States, experienced food and drink and things that we don't have here. So that's why we did that kind of a trip. And we came home with lots of, fun memories and stories. And I made pisco sours for my birthday party a couple of weeks ago. So that was fun. The ladies, I had a bunch of ladies over and they were like, these are so good. I was like, yeah,
I love that story. Yeah. So you learned that in your trip?
Well, we did. Well, we went to Caro and Nico's house. That was in Chile that we went to them. Yeah. They taught us how to do it, but we had tasted them before. So we didn't know how to make them, which they told us how to do, but it was fun to learn how to make them and then realize how easy it was so that we could do that at home. So.
Yeah, they're really tasty. I love pisco sour. They are very simple, but you have to prepare well.
Yeah, exactly. But we can get the pisco here, so we checked on that before we left, so we knew that we could do that, and so that was something that was really fun.
You did quite contrast in South America, the wine district in Chile, but also in the south, Patagonia and the glaciers. How was your experience like? Did you expect seeing such a diversity in South America? Because
you don't think about how big of a country it is, right? And how long Chile is, that runs the whole length of the continent and stuff like that. We are used to hearing Malbec as the wine of South America, and we really had a chance to try some great grapes that weren't Malbec. Cab Franc, like Eric was like, he had some shipped home. He's like, this is amazing. And so that kind of stuff was cool. What was cool was to see wine country in Argentina, Mendoza, versus like Napa in the US, and we'll say like Bordeaux in France, just kind of compare and contrast. And it's all so different. And the wines are obviously different because different grapes can be grown, but it just is such a cool experience to see how different, countries are growing their wine, growing their grapes and then doing their wines and things like that.
It's interesting because when we start planning trips with our travelers, and many of them are from United States,
Right.
this comes up in the conversation like, well, we have Napa Valley, we have our wines here. Maybe we don't, we can skip the wine district. And it's, I mean, I've been to some of the wineries in the US, but how do you see it from your perspective?
I mean, for me, it was great. I loved it. I mean, Mendoza is completely different than Napa. I mean, Napa's a valley. I mean, there are valleys, of course, in Mendoza, but with the Andes like sitting right there, and we had a clear day. Because our second day, full day, when we got up, we could see the Andes, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing!" I'm looking over a vineyard. The Andes are right there. Now we were there in winter, so I suppose season might be different. I'd love to see it in the summer when everything, there's leaves and grapes on the vines, but still a beautiful piece of the country. So I would encourage people to go. It's worth comparing and contrasting.
The Andes Mountains are beautiful. With Clara, we mostly lived in Buenos Aires, and at the coast in Argentina. Buenos Aires, you've seen, it's a beautiful big city.
Yeah,
but
it's huge. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's totally flat. So going to Mendoza, even for us, just seeing the Andes Mountains, it's like quite, wow, impressive.
Yeah.
Which is something you would say also kind of unique to.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Someone from Illinois or South Carolina isn't seeing that kind of stuff. So.
And how was traveling since you mentioned that you travel in the winter, because that's something also quite different from your trip.
Right.
Traveling during August. I mean, it's summer in the northern hemisphere, but it's the middle of the winter in South America.
Right. We were happy to leave the hot of South Carolina and go south and be cooler. I was cold in Patagonia. I had the right clothing for when we were in the other locations, that I didn't feel like this is really cold. So for us, it was a nice break. And because it was off season, there weren't a ton of people. We had the boat we were on in Calafate. We were the only ones in the little VIP area, which was so nice. And, stuff like that where we were the only ones. So that's kind of nice to avoid the crowds and, that type of thing. So, and the heat, I don't know how hot it gets for you guys, but
it gets quite hot in some places. Not Patagonia, of course, but
right.
If you go in December and January to Buenos Aires or even in Santiago, it could become.
It's warm. Yeah,
warm, very warm.
It's nice to travel and not be hot, because here, if you come here in August, it's hot, and you step outside and it's.
So yes, you get to avoid the crowds, which is a good.
Yes. Well, it's kind of nice to think about, like if you have Americans coming down and they live in hot places, it's nice to get away,
But sometimes people are a bit afraid of the winter, like, oh, Patagonia is the south. It's winter is going to be super rough. We're not going to be able to do anything. And it's not like that.
It was cold on the boat when we were moving, obviously. But when we got off the boat and kind of walked down around the glacier, like, I didn't feel uncomfortable. So now I had a hat and gloves and a light down coat. So, if people pack smartly, then it should be okay. So,
yeah, pack smartly. Yes, there is a saying, especially in the Netherlands. They know what they're talking about. There is nothing like
no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing.
Bad
right?
clothes,
Something
exactly.
like that.
Yes, that one. That's one of the first learnings I had in Northern Europe.
Yeah.
And Betsy, what did you think of the glaciers? We've always had customers comparing the glaciers with Alaska.
We loved it. We kind of went in, we saw there were condors up on the hills and they slowed the boat down. They showed us that. And then you just go along and there's like these blue ice cubes floating and you're like, what? And, those are icebergs. And I'm like, why are they blue? That type of thing. And then you get to the glacier and you're looking at it and you're like, holy cow, And I think for me, the coolest part was when we got off the boat at the second glacier and we walked around and you walk down and you could hear the glacier. Sounds like water running. The guide was like, yeah, that's how it sounds. And then the ice would break off and crash in. And I was like, it's just the coolest. I don't know. It was pretty cool. I don't know what Alaska has, but
it's quite stunning. Yes. Yeah, I haven't been to Alaska. I should go just to be able to reflect.
Right.
But I know people who still went to see the Perito Moreno and the other glaciers that they still said, oh, this is another thing.
Exactly. So, no, I worth going to Patagonia if you're already down there, in my opinion.
And then you finalized the trip. Well, I mean, you did Buenos Aires, you visited did a couple of our tours with our.
Yes. That's right. We did the asada night, which was fun, where they cooked a bunch of different meat for us. That was great. We did the 2 half-day tours, maybe, of the city.
Mm-hmm. Went to San Telmo and the market.
Yes.
Palermo.
Yes. We really enjoyed being in the city and walking around, and the guide was excellent. We went to Uruguay. That's what we did.
I was going to ask you about Uruguay.
That's an interesting, quick, fun trip. It's nice to take the ferry. Kind of nice to walk around Colonia and see all the old stuff, and kind of, I think I had a better understanding for the geography of all of it and the river and all that stuff after Colonia and seeing it. So, definitely interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true, because you cross to Uruguay with a ferry boat.
Yes. Yeah.
And you get to understand what the big river is all about.
It is a big river. Yeah.
It's huge. Yes.
Well, and I think it's funny that the people that live in Buenos Aires take the ferry over to go to the beach in Colonia. So I thought that was kind of funny. So
yes. And when you are in Buenos Aires, it doesn't look like it's a river, right?
Not at all. No, not at all. So Eric was actually a little confused. I'm like, it's okay. We got it.
Overall, what would you say the highlights of the trip were, or what your favorite parts?
Right. I would say doing the meal with Nick and Caro in Chile was that was the highlight of that piece of the trip. They were so welcoming. The food was amazing. I just felt like it was nice to talk to someone and learn more about someone's life in that country that I had never been to before. So I really enjoyed that. Mendoza, as I mentioned, the hotel was probably our favorite hotel just because of its location in the vineyard, and they treated us really well. And it was a fun experience at that hotel. And then the glaciers win. I mean, yes, okay, I can go to Alaska, but I don't know that I'll see that ever again. So that was also a big piece of it.
Yeah. And how did you feel about how the itinerary came up, and because we created this trip together?
Right. I think it was great. I think everything was like 2 days in Mendoza was perfect. Like a full day in Patagonia was good. I mean, we certainly could have probably filled a second day if we'd done some hiking and stuff. And then Buenos Aires was, a good number of days as well. So I think that from that perspective, everything was good. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the gluten-free, you guys knocked it out of the park on the gluten-free stuff. Like everyone knew I was gluten-free. Everyone had stuff for me. People really went out of their way, and I was super pleased with that. Mm-hmm. And I thank you guys for that, because everyone had warning that I was coming, so it wasn't a surprise. And so thank you for that. That worked out really well. The treats in the hotel, so every place you left us a little note and some treats, which I loved. Your team, amazing. I mean, so pleased with the planning, so pleased with the on the ground WhatsApp, responses from everybody when we needed them, and how everything was organized and all that stuff. So I hope that they saw that in my review, that I was grateful. And, again, I'm very impressed with all of you guys. And, this is the second large trip we've done. And you guys are like A+++++. And I think, I would certainly recommend you to anyone who is going down to South America.
Thank you, Betsy. That's amazing. Thank you so much.
You guys work hard. I know those gals are working hard. And I know you are doing weird hours so you can talk to clients and, stuff like that. And it really does show, and it's important. So, especially when you're in a country where you don't speak the language and,
Yeah. Well, thank you. No, I really appreciate we all enjoy what we do. I think that's something that shows.
Yeah, definitely.
The level of care and everything. So I'm, delightful that that's what you are getting from this trip.
Yep.
And I remember when we started planning, you had a bit of not the best of the experience when you traveled. It was to South Africa, if I'm not wrong. So I'm pleased to have this after conversation and see how it all was.
Most definitely.
Yeah. So, thank you for trusting, because you didn't know us. So it's a big deal. And I know it was. So it was a real pleasure. So, thank you for this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Yes. Well, and we'll keep you in mind. We will at some point be back to see other parts and pieces. So we'll definitely be in contact when we need help with that stuff. So
we will be here. Thank you.
If you loved this episode, you can subscribe to the podcast and share it with a fellow traveler, or why not, an entrepreneur. You can find us at across-southamerica.com and on Instagram at across-South-America. And if you're dreaming of your own handcrafted journey, reach out. We'd love to help. Gracias and see you soon. Nos vemos pronto. And let's keep the stories going.